People who have had friends stab you in the back. What is the story? Made plans to go see a movie with my friends for my 16th birthday and planned it weeks in advance. Everybody bailed the day before /of, but I decided to still go see the movie. Ran into my whole group of friends leaving the movie theater while buying popcorn. Damn, I feel for ya. I had my 17th birthday and invited my mates to go get a drink at a bar. Everyone accepted, but none came. After a few hours of drinking alone and phones calls not getting picked up, I saw on Instagram that they were on a electro party having a good time. Apparently they were pre-gaming without me and spontaneously decided to go to this event and forgot about me. Everyone said sorry, but it still haunts me. Didn't celebrate my birthday ever since. Asked two of my friends if they wanted to live together in college. Then one of them asked another person in our friend group if he wanted to join in as well. Then they asked another and another. And then once there were too many people for one apartment, they dropped me out of it. No longer friends with any of them. Was kinda a wake up call though, because I definitely gave way too much of myself to those people not knowing that I was the most expendable one. It really taught me not to put others on a pedestal and respect myself more, and has since led to me developing far more healthy relationships that bring me a lot of happiness. Several of my housemates decided to move to the West Coast after college. There was one who was planning on going with them that they didn't want to keep living with. They waited to tell her until after they had driven out over spring break to look at apartments in her car. Pretty gross, and it really messed with her. Glad you're doing better. My mother told me she was sick of being with dad. She told me a bunch of things he'd done which made her afraid of him. She asked me to tell a few of her close friends about how she was being treated because she wanted them to understand why she was leaving. Then she decided to stay with him. So she told her friends that she had no idea what was wrong with me, but they should pray for me because it looked like I was going through something. My own mother stabbed me in the back. You're not alone. Dozens of times throughout my childhood after witnessing, being told of, and experiencing all the emotionally and physically abusive things my mom's boyfriend did to her and us, she's decided to leave and have us pack everything. We'd be so hopeful and relieved. She'd take off for hours, tell us to tell him why she was leaving and that she hated him, putting us in the middle. Because of that, every time she frequently took off, even when we stopped caring, he'd hound and scream at us. Then she'd stay, get upset at us for upsetting him. We'd get yelled at by her constantly for not respecting him, by hugging not him, by not saying I love you, for not wanting to engage with him overall. She'd say we had no reason to treat him like that. He was so good to us, even if he was bad to her. Spoiler, no. After like a year of that, we started just saying aha and going to our rooms. When she got on a "we're leaving, start packing, load the car, we have to go now" rampage. She'd then change her age into "why aren't you listening to me? I said start packing. You're taking his side? Fine, you can all stay here with him." And then, even when she'd stay after that, she'd act like we betrayed her. We all noped the frick out as soon as we were able. Yikes, my mom got pissed at me about 3 days after my grandpa passed away because I was still crying over it. While I don't recall the exact wording, she basically told me to suck it up and move on. That about perished me. This was many years ago, so I can happily say my mom and I are good to go, but it took me a long time to tell my mom anything again. I had one friend. I was bullied by everyone at elementary school. Because my friend would be bullied too when they hung out with me at school, we only played outside of school. One day a popular kid asked to play with me during recess. I was ecstatic. Until after a while they said you're not as bad as friend said you are. And that's how I learned why I was bullied. I relate. I had a whole group of friends in H's who, one day out of nowhere, turned against me and brought the entire year group with them. No one spoke to me, were extremely cold for a good 6 months. I even got calls from one girl every day from a block number to perish myself. It wasn't until a group project started and the group said the exact same thing. Wow, you're really not like how X and Y said you were. They never told me what was said, so to this day I have no idea what the hell happened there. I had a best friend that I knew for 16 years. She got pregnant and her parents tried to kick her out. Her parents wanted her to get an abortion but she refused. One of our HS friends told me someone should push her down a flight of stairs so she can miscarry. I told her that's a very bad idea and offended my best friend. The next day, the principal came by my class to ask me if I could attend a meeting about something important. If I didn't attend, I was going to be expelled. When I arrived to the meeting, a shared friend claimed I was going to shove my best friend down flights of stairs so she can miscarry. My best friend believed her. We stopped talking after that. My husband and I, had a friend that we helped get back on his feet. Paid off some tickets he had. Got his license reinstated. Hooked him up with a solid connection for a reasonable, well-running car to replace his beater, and gave him a place to live and a job, automotive repair. He decided it was a better choice to tell all our customers we were overcharging them. Spoiler, we weren't, and he'd do the jobs cheaper if they'd bring it to him at his house. This was a short time after he moved out of our house. After never repaying anything he owed us. Not that we'd asked. Broke my heart. I had one friend who honestly wasn't my favorite person because she was really manipulative, but I never said anything bad about her. I found out that she had been poop talking me to all of our mutual friends and telling them all that I did horrible things that I never did. Ended up essentially being pushed out of that entire friend group, and it ruined a lot of my high school experience. Years ago when I did a health sciences undergraduate degree, most of the cohort was determined to get into medical school. Our medical school program mainly accepted students from only our competitive undergraduate course, due to subject prerequisites. We all knew each other and were friendly, hanging out together, and forming study groups. Many of my friends were great. We shared tips, resources, practiced exams and interviews together. But there were a handful who really wanted to get into medical school, and since the program ranks applicants, mainly based on undergraduate results, the better your friends perform, the lower your ranking is for selection. So near application time, some of us would head off to the university library to borrow out textbooks to find chapters or page numbers that the lecturer mentioned would be on the exam, and they would be ripped out. You go and find another library copy of the textbook, and that page would be ripped out too. All of them, totally removed in a hurry. I didn't believe that someone from our cohort did it until interview practice began. Students began obtaining copies of the questions from previous years and lying when others asked if they had it. I saw someone give a terrible awful interview answer and the other student would give them glowing feedback and inform them they should say that word for word during the interview. It was a poop show and a lot of relationships fell apart or were never the same again. Sometimes people give me a hard time for being so vocal about I'm not sure I like the idea of doing, but the way I see it, this opens the discussion, so this exact scenario comes up less often. You're trying to make plans. Someone thinks going to the bar would be fun. It could, but just going to a friend's house, or going to a more low-key bar, or a more lively bar sounded more fun to more of the group. This wasn't vocalized. It just lived in their minds. So instead of saying yes, to be polite then freaking over the friend, I just blurt out, but what about the other factors? At which point, if the group collectively isn't feeling it, it's announced at the plan making stage, so everyone can be included, and it's not a plan versus plan scenario. It shocks me how often people say yes to plans because they think it would be rude to deny them in person and instead do the much more rude act of abandoning their friend/us. And for some reason that is more socially acceptable. Friends of mine were like this, except they at least told me they weren't going to go. Thing was it was always at the last minute. The last straw for me was when I planned a dinner out 2 weeks in advance and they cancelled the night before. I didn't plan anything after that, and we didn't see each other for years after that. After a couple years we meet up again and everything seems cool. Then they sit me down, like it's an intervention and that very dinner comes up again. They're making it like it's my fault I plan things they don't want to go to. I explained very calmly that they need to communicate better. Then I asked if they would do the same thing to anyone else. An awkward silence filled the room and they just asked me to be cool. So apparently we are all acting like diplomats now. friendly while conveniently ignoring we all fought each other in a war in the past. A guy who seemed like a good mate when it was just us, and then as soon as there was someone else, or a group, he took the piss out of me and tried to make me the butt of all jokes. Even worse if there were girls around. After a while, I called him out on it, and he was just like, dude, it's just a joke, but I was done with him after that. I saw him randomly earlier this year, after years of no contact, and it was amicable, and we caught up a bit on how we are getting on with our lives, and while he has grown up and become a bit more grounded, there's been no intention of rebuilding a bridge. I think if I ever met someone who has that side to their personality, I'd drop them like a hot potato.